to receive, or maybe just to understand, is in the capital budget book where we have the section entitled Projects Requiring Total / Additional Funds. I would like to understand, because I don't understand what's in the book, how much money we have, how much money we need, and what our potential sources are for that money. Like, are we expecting to be able to use federal funds? Because when I look at the book, I can't tell what you have or what we have and what we don't have, what we still need. So
I think this was a question that was asked out of one of the questions, was basically if we had projects that closed out, what we do with those funds. Usually if we have a shortfall in a particular project and we close out a project, that particular closed out project, we will use those funds to kind of shore up those potential funds for projects that need funding. But let's just say if it was, depending on the amount, if it's a large amount, but we know that it's 70% completed and we just need a little bit more funding, based on that, the other funding sources will be the issue. And I think the mayor has brought it up to this council about the potentially of floating a bond or a warrant referendum to try and show up those new projects and some of the older projects. But to your question, Councilor, we'll get more clarification from the Department of Capital Projects about your inquiry about, the actual remaining amount for those particular projects that need funding.
Okay, well, and I'll give you an example because that's always a handy thing to have. The 41st Street Streetscape and Drainage Project. It's in District 5, but we're friends. So it says project budget $1,300,000. Then it says grant 20% match. Then it says $750,000 old bond funds, and then it says $2.4 million estimate. So what does that mean?
So that one is particularly. Let me see if I can explain it better. If you recall, under the former finance director, Lester Smith, we had a bond that we had to send back to the IRS because we didn't expend the funds timely. So we went before the bond market to refinance to that particular bond set. And so we're working through that actual bond category for that referendum, for that refunding that we did, to present it back to the council for those projects that need the funding to be restored to those particular projects. That's one of those projects that we had to return the money, but we refinanced to regain those funds back again. So we're going to present a new allocation under that refinancing for those existing projects. That's just one of those.
Okay, because we get a lot of requests from the public about why the heck nothing's happening, and it's hard to explain. And then when you get the book and you can't explain it, even after you've read the book, it makes it difficult. And Richard Arrington Jr. Boulevard Streetscape is another one that we were told that y'all had found the money.
Yes, it's under that bond refinancing that we will present to the council fairly shortly, hopefully within the next couple of weeks after the World Games, and when we have a budget and finance meeting.
Okay, because it says $2.5 million, 20% grant match, but what does that mean? So that's my example of just we need something some of us need something we can understand. I'm sure there's lots of people who understand it, but I don't.
Yes, ma'am, totally understand that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, is there anyone else? Any other councilors? Councilor O'Quinn?
Yes. So in terms of employee benefits, and this is mainly just because I got a call yesterday about this. In the proposed budget, there's COLA, merit, longevity, and 5%.
That was already approved.
That was already approved in April.
Under the surplus, yes.
Right. And so there's, I think the way that had been originally framed, it was 5% in April that was going to be accompanied by 5% in this budget?
So the additional 5% is the merit increase for those employees that are eligible for a merit step increase, which is a 5% step increase.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So with the passage of the budget, all of those benefits would
Kick in on July 1st, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselors? So you guys are good with the budget then? Okay. Well, Madam President?
Well, thank you very much, counselors. I do appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate the mayor and his team for being available today. I think this makes our fourth meeting, and we had the 2 public hearings, and we've had the 3 opportunities for those individual questions as well as one-on-ones with the mayor. So I do want to thank you all for being sure that we have the clarity that we need as we consider this. Ms. Abbott, did you have one other thing?
One other thing. You know, every year we have the budget meetings with the departments, and the departments ask for whatever they need. The piece that the council never hears is what part or parts of their request are granted and which parts are rejected by the administration. We don't ever know for sure what's been approved. So even if you heard what the departments asked for, you don't know what was accepted. So I'm just looking at Chaz, and I'm looking at the mayor, and I'm looking at the chief, and can somebody provide that information to us?
Yeah, I think we submitted the actual budget request to Mr. McDaniels for dissemination, but to your question about did they get what they asked for, of course, a lot of the budgets are needs versus wants, and we have to pretty much align ourselves with a finite amount of money that's equitable across all the departments. So I'm comfortable in saying, and I'll take the hit on this, that I think we were very very, very nice, let's just say that, thank you, to the departments to give them almost what they needed or what they asked for. So I don't think we should have an issue.
Okay, well, I was just curious because, I remember the old days when the council would do crazy stuff like cut every department's budget by 5% so that we would have money to spend on things we wanted to spend on, which of course we can't do anymore, but we still never knew what we were cutting. We just did it. So, I just like to know what of the things they asked for they got. And of course, in this year with all the money that we have, I'm glad that you were able to be generous, but I'd still like to know what they got and what they didn't get, unless you just gave everybody everything they wanted, which I know you didn't.
We can.
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes.
to the entire council, Ms. Abbott, I just want to add, there won't be much to report back, with one exception. There's always a request every year for more personnel. Operations, justification and responses, feel what you have first. I think you all see the surplus every year. You know where that majority of the surplus comes from. So that would be the one thing that would probably not necessarily be satisfied, but everything else is pretty much satisfied.
So if an item, if personnel are included in their budget and they have vacant positions, they can just fill them without getting permission from you or your staff? They can just fill them if they're there?
Yeah, if a department has a vacant position, they have the full authority to go ahead and fill that position. Now, take for instance, if they had a request for another position that's not in the budget, they can use those vacant positions to create that position that they requested, which keeps them in their balanced budget. So there are no new requests for new positions, but let's say if somebody had 2 vacancies that they know they won't fill based on something that we're dealing with the personnel board, they can take those 2 positions and make another position that they feel they can be more able to recruit somebody for that type of position, maybe a senior level position or a principal position.
Okay, because I know the plant taxonomist at the Botanical Gardens, they wanted to hire one because they didn't have one. and this was a past administration, they weren't allowed to hire somebody even though they had the position and they had money, but they weren't allowed to hire them.
Yeah,
So
That would definitely be the exception, not the rule, because you have not just the mayor's office, you have a board that's appointed by you that has its own independent executive director. They also have a Friends of board that they have. One group may want something, the other group may want something else, so the other group says if you want it, you hire. So that's a...
Well, the plant taxonomist was a city employee.
Gotcha. It's a very unique example.
Well, it is, but I remember, and it was in another administration, that they wanted to hire the person because they had the empty spot and they really needed them, and they were told, no, you can't hire.
I remember. I served on the Friends board at a certain point in my prior...
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know they're a unique situation, but, that was Botanical Gardens needs a plant taxonomist.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Carol, okay, thank you.
Noted.
I think it's still there. Councilor Quinn.
Yeah, this is a couple of questions. With regard to, and this is just for my own education, because I'm not a finance director or anything like that, but so with regard to these vacant positions, we have, some departments that have more vacancies than we can hope to potentially fill. I would say definitely within the fiscal year. But in the context of this budget, we still have to budget for those positions, which means we have to set that money aside to, pay those folks in the event that we might possibly hire them. But the reality is there's no way we're going to fill all the vacant positions within BPD, for example. So my question is like, we tie this money up, within the context of the budget, which prevents us from using it, putting it used to elsewhere. I mean, how do we? My question is that just like a fact of life and we have to deal with it? It is what it is? Or is there some way that at like 6 months down the road, we say, okay, we're not going to fill all these vacant positions. We're going to pull that money back and put it to use?
Madam President, to Dr. O'Quinn's question.
Yes, Mr.
Mayor. Look, we're not going to even be political. We're going to tag team this answer. I want my chiefs their responsibility is to dive deep in all of our personnel issues, solve for those issues. I want them to speak first, and then I'll come back on the end and put a bow on it.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Moore.
Everyone. And I serve as the Chief of Finance. To answer your question, Dr. O'Quinn, yes, we do have to budget for those positions. One of the most critical things we had to think about during this budget process is whether we should delete those positions. But in fairness to these departments, we have to make sure we budget for these positions because the city is so low on its employee staffing, and give those departments an opportunity to fill these positions. Realize many of our vacant positions are in our most critical. Not having those positions, in light of some of the creative things that those departments are doing, hire and fill those positions.
Don't keep going.
The other part of that, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Council. The other part is what Chief Mitchell mentioned, which is we do allow the departments the flexibility to combine positions to make the position more lucrative or attractive when the step or grade is below, in terms of pay, what a person would come in at. So it's several dynamics. What I can assure you is the vacant position fluff has been eliminated pretty drastically since the mayor took over, because that was just a practice that existed before we came. But we do have to, one, plan for the departments in the event that they do fill them, and even as the positions are listed, we give them the flexibility to merge to make the offer more attractive. But yeah, it's just kind of what we have, Council.
And
You have to stay within the context of the Jefferson County Personnel Board
Right.
steps, right?
Right.
So you're still working within a range.
Still, right. So it still has to be subject to within the range of the PBJC rules, which is a whole nother conversation. But yes, it's still subject to PBJC approval.
yeah, and just to add, for like the police department per se, if, you know, a lot of the things that we do, especially with the vacant positions, if they're not filled, we still have to have officers and fire departments and everybody still working. So a lot of that is supplemented as overtime. So it's not, I would not say it's not spent, it's spent in some form or fashion in personnel, especially when it comes to overtime. Because if we hired everybody, then we wouldn't have to have overtime.
Right.
So just more context. I think, I mean, you mentioned the words, just the education piece is, I think it's important for all the council, Madam President. Our employees fall in one of three categories: public safety employees, public works employees, and general service employees. The three largest are police, public works, fire. I think we all know where we are in those departments. I think you look at pre-Lester Smith, there was a significant amount of fluff in all three categories. I think pre-COVID, he started drilling in on that fluff. I think when we had that COVID budget, we had to go deeper. I think coming out of COVID, you've seen us still be in a position to solve for those positions that are needed. We have a city map and a city geographical landmass that doesn't match the population no more, but you still have to service citywide, and so you still have to solve for those positions. Our position every year that we drive to the department heads is you have to fill those positions. Again, our city unfortunately is caught up in the same national predicament everyone is on hiring. And so I think you mentioned something that I totally agree with, which is 6 months. You just threw it out there, but I think we do come back mid-year. At what point do we cut off hiring? What month is that? What month do we cut off? Next year, to be around March.
March or April.
So we do an assessment mid-year. So mid-year would be July, December, right? Where we take a look at what you've done first. I guess the third quarter of the calendar year, which is the first quarter of the fiscal year that starts July 1. Touch it again at the end of the calendar year, December, to look at it, 6 month mark, and then say, okay, here's where you are in March, kind of shut that down from a process standpoint so we can start solving for the next preparation for the next fiscal year related to personnel. I hope all of that, what we've all shared, provide us some more context.
Okay. I got one more. It's very simple. Sale of property. So we just last week approved a contract for the sale of the McCoy Center property, $600,000. When we have those types of sales, does that revenue go into the general fund?
Yes.
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 All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that Councilor Clark had a question and Councilor Williams. So Councilor Clark, is yours related to this question or what support? Okay.
You know, I was just thinking how much I could have benefited from an org chart, especially when Kelvin Datcher got up and said he was in the community development department, which I'm going, what? But can you not hear me?
We hear you.
Oh, okay. So now I'm curious if departments get to merge positions, I'm sure there's a paperwork, some kind of process they have to go through. That doesn't have to come to the council. That's purely administrative, but it's being tracked on your side so that we could get some kind of update to an org chart, assuming we're going to get one day.
So you'll get an org chart when the budget's approved.
Okay.
That's pretty standard. We do that every year, correct? You'll get an org chart.
Okay.
Relates to the second part, finance department and HR track.
Okay. And then to Dr. O'Quinn's question and your responses, it stands to reason that some things are going to be, a lot of things are going to be unfilled July 1st. Because even with the strategies and all the things we're investing in, they'll have to take some time to bear results. And I'm pleased that you're committing to the mid-year. I would still like to look at each quarter as it's closed out, just so we, just in a finance and budget meeting, we just sit down and look at how do we do according, based on projections on the revenue side, how do we do, and I think it's going to help us, it's going to help me as a fiduciary to just get a grip on how this operates. And, I know we get the blue book.
Well, I think the administration is already committed to leadership, but commit to all of you all. I think outside of the mid-year review, the administration has no problem with the once a quarter. I think if it's what I've shared with Madam President, what I've shared with the Budget Chairwoman, also Pro Tem under her Budget and Finance Committee meeting, it can be once a quarter added to a committee of the whole meeting, and it can just be a part of that if that's sufficient. If not, we can discuss another option, but they seem to be open to that.
Would that be pleasurable? All right.
I just want to sit down so we can ask questions and have some dedicated time to go through it.
I think that's good. Yes.
As a group, as a team.
Madam President, I just wanted to, because she asked about the org chart, and this is I know Ms. Appleby is pretty excited about this, but we are releasing a CD directory that has photos, so that will be coming shortly that the council will have access to. So I know you're excited.
I am excited. I've been asking for 20 years. This mayor will be the one who made it happen.
Thank you. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess my question is, one thing that's important when we're looking at the budget is the total number of full-time, or I guess filled positions and open positions that is part. It's not just the line item of the total budget number. It's also in terms of, whatever the monetary thing is we're approving. But also I think it's very important when we see how many open positions or positions from this fiscal year versus last fiscal year. How can we tell when a department has combined positions? I mean, I guess in the budget book that we're looking at, are we seeing 2 filled positions as actually 1 employee? Because of the way that, because there's a consistency in every single fiscal year between the number of employees that we have voted on, and we see that throughout the budget and then the following fiscal year. But if departments are combining open positions and having 1 head in that open position, what are we seeing? Are we seeing? I'm confused about what
we're gonna. It's add and delete.
Yes.
It's add and delete, but I'm gonna let Kevin.
Okay, so it's add and deletes, and then it's also the book shows like minuses where they deleted a position and added a position within in the same budget.
And I've seen that, but that's been pretty sparse. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Well, Kevin is going to respond to this too. You're right, it is sparse. This is not something we're doing all the time. Think about the conversation we had with Public Works and the truck drivers. We got to get unique. We got to get creative on how to entice people to be truck drivers. You got to raise your grade, but if there are some positions unfilled, but in the middle of a fiscal year, if it wasn't budgeted for, this is how you do that. That would be the exception, not the rule.
So under that scenario, let's say next fiscal year, we're looking at the budget and we were able to hire 50% of the open CDL positions, but we had to use 100% of the open CDL positions to hire that 50%. We'll see a negative 50% in this upcoming year's proposed budget from you guys on the actual column.
Yes, sir. You'll see the adds and deletes. Those are in what you see in your budget book. In those positions, it'll say added or deleted at this date.
Okay.
And those are the ones that dropped or went up.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna give you an example. Mayor just made an excellent point with Public Works. We're buying new vehicles, so those drivers who are now working a computer may be at a higher grade. So to get them at that higher grade, we may have to delete a couple of positions to fund that new grade.
I got it.
That's like an example.
I got it.
So it's
Okay.
add and delete, and it's also done by internal forms and tracked through budget and HR.
So if we wanted to see how, like if we wanted to see that, like this council, like if we wanted to see that, how could we go about seeing, not like for tomorrow, but I'm saying in general.
You just talking about
Like, yeah, like I want to know,
various
what we had to do
positions.
to get CDL drivers. Like, is that something that we could, like, I mean, that's not in the blue book. It's not in the budget book. So
We'll get that to the mayor.
I gotcha. I'm just, okay. Thank y'all. That's all my question.
All right, thank you. And would that frequency be sufficient during that quarterly update we'd be receiving, or do you want that real time? Like, okay.
It's okay with
Could we
you.
do that?
If it's okay with you, Madam President, I want to discuss more with him and drill down on kind of what he's looking for.
I'm good. I'm good with it. I just wanted to make sure that my question's been answered, but I wanted to make sure that the actual number of positions that I've been voting on is actually one seat in a chair, not like.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
You see what
That's
I'm saying?
fair, Madam
Yeah.
President.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors? Councilor Abbott?
I hate to ask this, but I'm going to. At one time, the city was looking at changing our fiscal year to the same as the county and all those other cities, and we never did it. And if we did do it, then our mid-year would actually be at the mid-year.
Right. Tell me that was not under this administration.
It was not under this administration, but what I was wondering is, are we ever considering doing that?
I haven't been privy to those conversations, Ms. Abbott. That's not something that the finance team or any of the leadership, whether it's been Mr. Smith or Mr. Moore or Mr. Barnett, have brought to our attention that I'm aware of. So that's not necessarily something in the queue that we've discussed and or plan on discussing. Love to hear more of your thoughts, though.
Well, it seemed like a good idea. I just wondered if y'all were considering it.
Look, there are 3 different calendars that I'm aware of. School system in the county do October 1. We do July 1. And of course, the 3rd, a lot of people do January 1. So there are a minimum of 3 different calendars that exist, and I'm unaware of any uniformity with anybody.
And I can't, to be honest, I don't remember why we were going to change. There was some great reason, but I don't remember what it was. But I was just curious to know if that was still bubbling underneath the surface, but it's not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott. Ms. Clark?
Mayor, this is related to the capital budget that we don't have, and it's about one we might have one day. When we get a capital budget, or maybe before we get a capital budget, will we do the stormwater the overall storm drainage assessment? Will we do that so that it can inform, what some of the priorities might be, what some of the priority projects might be that we need when we get a capital budget, through a bond referendum or something?
I'm going to start this answer off by saying I don't know, because that's an honest answer. And then I'm going to give you some thoughts.
Okay.
And then chiefs can chime in. I actually wish Ms. Thomas was here, because from her public meetings, when I don't know how many of you all attended the public town hall we had, or when she presented to us at our retreat, that assessment is going to take a while. And I don't know if she told you, but it's a cost that it's an unknown cost, like the full assessment. So you got some categories here. You got some individual assessments they've already done of projects where it's not just squeaky wheel, but kitchen's on fire, needs to be addressed. Here's a cost. Have this overall thing they need to do that is significant, that's going to take an extensive amount of time, and is going to be a very high cost. I'm not sure, and this is the part where I say I don't know. I'm not sure how long that process takes, matched with when we want to go to the bond market, or more important way of saying it is when we should go. There may be a window where our financial advisors are telling us this is based on this current market with everything that exists, what the Federal Reserve just done, this may be your best time to go versus when this assessment will be complete, which is a full unknown right now because it will be citywide. It doesn't stop the projects we already know that have been assessed that we don't have a cost for, where I imagine out of 9 districts, I think there are at least 6 projects now. It's a whopping number. President, I'm going all out of order.
It's okay.
So that's for the assessment?
Citywide.
Okay, and how long will it take?
I don't know. We don't know. She said, tell you we don't know. Well, I mean, that mega cost, it's a mega project. It's just on the assessment side. We don't have an answer today.
So we're not sure we're going to do the comprehensive assessment.
Oh, we can do it.
So we have proposals.
I think it'd have to be in pieces.
So we have proposals from consultants that have that big a number on it to do the comprehensive assessment?
Not sure.
Okay. So the other thing,
that number came from PEP though. It didn't come from the mayor's office.
This is another big number. The downtown bridges. I know putting them back might be a big number, but we have to do something, right, to protect what's below the bridge from the forces of gravity.
Right.
Yes?
So
I mean, we cannot do anything.
So
And we can't just have the roads end.
So, Madam President, to Mrs. Councilwoman Clark's comment, we will do something. It will be phased. Team did an exercise. Plus, we get a lot of input from the community. Administration tends to agree with what most of the community response has been, which is, Mayor, please don't make this back a vehicular bridge. We would like some form of a maintained pedestrian bridge. Okay. We haven't seen where its closure has caused any significant congestion or flow. But it is a matter of what do we do next. There's a matter of what we do next.
Just to stabilize it.
Yes. Now, what we've done is by definition stabilizing in a sense, because the truth, Madam President, closing wasn't for necessarily say your size vehicle or any of your size vehicles. More so for the people who are not supposed to be using it. How do you prevent them from using it, which is certain size number of wheels and 18-wheelers and delivery trucks, etc. I don't think our standard vehicle usage was causing it to be in jeopardy. It was those who were not supposed to be using it.
So is the one we've closed the only one that needs maintenance?
No. But it was the one that stood at, you want to say it better than me?
The workshop.
Yeah, so the 21st Street Bridge, I believe it's 115 years old this year, and it differs significantly from the 22nd Street Bridge in that this 22nd Street Bridge was actually designed to accommodate streetcars. So it's basically a heavier duty structure and is in although deteriorated, it was just designed so much more robustly that it doesn't represent the same safety concerns that the 21st Street Bridge does. So we've got more time on that one, but the 21st Street Bridge, is the one that was most critical. And right now, you're absolutely right that, in terms of probably the biggest concern is to the global supply chain, and that if a bridge falls in the middle of a Class 1 railroad, you got a major problem in terms of moving the 60-plus trains that pass through downtown. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I just thought of that.
Thank you, councilors. I did just want to go back and revisit, just for clarity, the question that was raised earlier about our knowledge of what is asked for during the budget versus what departments actually receive. And I know that the comment was made that was sent to Mr. McDaniels. But that information is disseminated, and we have that for our preview. Now, of course, I said we get the Blue Book every month, but you don't. But Mr. McDaniels, can you just explain? You did send that to us, and we have that information. And we're also privy to the budget hearings. We're invited to those via the web.
Days.
Yes.
My recollection may not be that good, but they got a ton of folks over there who can help me. I think between Diana and Chaz, through Councilor Wood's encouraging, they sent the links out to councilors. And so by virtue of Councilor Wood's inquiry, they sent the meeting links out, which included the requested budget and the proposed budget from the departments. It was something like that, I think.
No, you're 100% correct.
All right. Well, thank you. I think our commitment has been, though, to receive those updates quarterly, and we'll either do that during Budget and Finance, or we'll have the Committee of the Whole. We could do that. All right. Well, councilors, if I can entertain a motion again, thank you, Mayor, and your team, and thank you, councilors.
Wait, Madam President.
Madam Chair, go ahead.
I have a question. Councilor Abbott, just because you're the oldest, I guess you've been serving the longest, I should say. I'm sorry, that's wrong
You can go ahead and say it.
No, you've been here the
Always
longest. Doesn't the council need to send the budget to the agenda?
Yes, and I was going to make a motion that we send the budget to the council agenda. I know it's on there, but let's do it right and, move ahead.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposers? All right, thank you, councilors. We'll be sending that to the agenda. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, councilors. We're adjourned.